Story 1. I, 24 female, am an identical twin. Very few can tell my sister and me apart if you don't know us well. For the sake of this story, I'll call my sister Madison. Growing up, we were poor. It was a constant struggle for my parents. I started working as soon as I could to help contribute financially towards bills. Madison was more focused on how she looked, and honestly, a gold digger. I was more career-focused. I moved to the city to live with my cousin for better job opportunities. I ended up getting a good job and decided to stay in the city, and I would send back money for my parents and grandparents, who also lived with my parents, which allowed them to move to better housing. Or so I thought. I would visit whenever I could. Every time I visited, Madison always had a new boyfriend. According to my parents, she lived with her boyfriend and didn't want to get a job, so she lived off her boyfriends. 4 days ago, my parents rang me up in a panic, saying they needed me to come home. I asked why, and they said your sister cheated on her fiancé, and we need you to cover for her. This was the first time I heard about Madison being engaged. They went on to say he was rich and had been allowing them to stay for free in one of his parents' rental properties because of Madison. This shocked me because they told me that the money I'd been sending them was paying for the home they'd been living in. After I blew up about them lying to me about the money I'd been sending them, they reluctantly admitted they'd been giving it to Madison. I was so angry I said no and ended the call. Ever since then, my parents and Madison constantly tried to get in contact with me and told me that if I didn't say it was me that her fiancé caught cheating, then my parents would be homeless and I would ruin the better life that her fiancé can provide for her and them. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't want my grandparents to be homeless. But at the same time, I don't want to be the one to take the blame for being the one who cheated on a married man and then ruin my reputation back home. Am I the idiot for not pretending to be my twin and covering up her cheating on her fiancé? Geez girl, if you cover up for your twin, you're the biggest fool walking. You should message the fiancé and tell him the truth about what's going on. Your parents have to learn, and you need to come to terms with the fact that your parents are not good people. They could have had a residence if they were using the money as they told you. So you need to pull up your big girl panties and put your foot down. They messed around and found out. You don't owe any of them a thing. Block them right after you tell the fiancé it was his fiancé, not you. Block everyone who says you're making your parents homeless. That's Madison's doing. Trashy person. Can we also just take the poor fiancé into account too? Just because you have money doesn't mean people are entitled to abuse your generosity, cheat on you, and lie to you. If Madison had it so good, then she's a fool for jeopardizing her life, her parents' lives, and her grandparents' lives. That is an exceptional level of selfishness. Op needs to leave the whole situation alone and stop sending money to anyone. Yeah, stop sending them money. These are your parents. They have 20 more adult years on the planet than you. They have a lot more practice being adults. They've had many more years to develop wealth and resources. Most people are financially stable as they get older because they learn and grow with money because they don't have to start new all the time because they build equity in a house. Your parents have had their adult years, now they're trying to destroy yours because they have needs. When do you get to live your own life? Why are you responsible for them like you're the adult and they're the child? I agree, your parents and sister are liars, cheats, lazy, entitled, and have no morals. If you go with their lies, you would be no better than them. If you have a conscience, it'll ruin you to have this big secret and lie over your head for the rest of your life. Your parents had no problem deceiving you and giving your hard-earned money to your sister to enjoy life doing nothing and messing around. Your dear sister can be homeless. It's her mess. Find your backbone and stop being taken for a fool by your parents and sister. I am a female 27. And my husband, 36, was previously married and had a tween daughter, Mary. We got married, and now we have a girl who will soon have a birthday, pre-tween, and a boy who's a preschooler. I'm also pregnant. He has custody over the girl on weekends and shared holidays, and she lives with her mom, a very unpleasant woman, by the way. The girl has some behavior issues. I've talked about this with my husband, who also sees it. She usually refuses to listen to us when we tell her what to do, like to do your homework, need to tidy up your bedroom, etc. It hasn't been so much as to be a big problem or worry until recently. About a month or so ago, my husband and I were inside with our youngest. We were trying to get him to nap since he was fussy, and I wasn't feeling well, so we asked both girls to play outside with their toys. A while later, we hear crying and our daughter comes in. She tells us that her sister was being mean to her, but Mary says she wasn't. So we talked to both girls and my daughter said that her sister wanted to play with her Barbie, but my daughter didn't want to because she was making an outfit with Play-Doh. Mary said that she'd ruin the doll and my daughter said that she wouldn't, and that she'd get new dolls on her birthday anyway, so Mary said that she'd ruin her because she's stupid. They fought. I have no reason not to believe my daughter. She's always good and doesn't pick up fights with anyone. However, Mary does. I told her that it was unacceptable to do something like that to her sister, and she told me that I was not her mom and I couldn't tell her what to do. My husband and I tried to tell her why what she had done was wrong. She got angry and said that she hated me, and also attempted to hit my stomach. My husband was very angry too, so he made her pick up her stuff and drove her back to her mother's house, since I didn't want her here anymore. Her mom, as always, said that it was my fault, and that her daughter had probably not done anything. I asked my husband to talk to his ex so they could find a solution for the girl so she'd behave better. I asked him if he could go see her at her mom's house for a couple of weeks because I honestly didn't feel right having her at our home with what she did. He agreed, so she hasn't returned these last few weeks. However, our daughter will have a birthday in 2 weeks, and we've been planning a party for her. I sent the invitations to her classmates. My husband told me to write one for Mary so he could give it to her this weekend. I told him that I wasn't planning on inviting her. She's a literal bully, and I won't have another job bully my daughter or my son. He told me I was being ridiculous. We got into an argument. He told me she's just a child too, and my hormones and protective instincts are messing with me. Also, he'll get Mary to apologize to our daughter and me, and that should be the end of it. I don't agree at all. I think that she definitely needs some help because she's gone too far this time. Am I the idiot? Was I have more than one doll, or does poor Mary have to play with rocks? The girl, as you so nicely put it, is a tween, and is probably adjusting to changes no child wants to face. 2 homes, a new family, who knows how the split went. You are the idiot for not taking into consideration that a child needs patience and understanding. You're pushing a little girl to the side without a second thought. So yeah, you and your husband, if he's allowing you to push his child away, suck. Exactly. Her siblings get to live with both their parents, and she gets to bounce between homes. And in one of them, her stepmother doesn't like her, and you bet she knows this. The parents don't seem to get along again, all the bio mom's fault because she's unpleasant. I'm sure Op is perfect. Poor kid doesn't 100% belong anywhere. Op, your disdain for this child is oozing from this story. You're like the original evil stepmom material from the first edition of Cinderella. You're right to leave her with her mom though. Don't push her to coexist with someone who doesn't care much for her. My wife, Angie, 27 female, and I, 29 male, have a son, Sam, toddler. We're part of a friend group of 7 people, including us. There's one more couple in this group. The other 3 are Zoe, 32 female, Greg, 41 male, and Tim, 30 male. Zoe doesn't like kids. She openly avoids them whenever she can. I've always known about this and have no problem with it. There have, however, been occasions in which he took it a bit too far. The friend group lives all over the country now, and most of us only get together once or twice a year. This January, we all decided to take a 5-day trip to Greg's beach house. It's in a different state and a 2-hour flight away. Both Greg and Tim have children. Greg invited us over while his kid was with his ex, but Tim is a single father and couldn't afford to leave his daughter with a babysitter for 5 days. Due to that, it was decided that Tim's daughter and Sam were welcome on the trip. Angie and I offered to leave Sam with my mother-in-law, but the whole group, including Zoe, said it was fine. All of these decisions were made 2 months in advance. 2 days before the trip, Tim informed us that his daughter had chicken pox and he had to cancel their tickets to stay with her. At that point, Zoe called Angie and said, "Guess your mom will have a busy week." My mother-in-law was traveling and wouldn't be back for another week. We had no other babysitting options or time to find one, so we told Zoe we were still bringing Sam. Zoe protested, saying that she was only okay with having kids around during the trip because she knew Tim had no choice, and we had no excuse to bring Sam, now that Tim's daughter wasn't coming anymore, but we held our ground. The others took our side. During the trip, Angie and I tried to help Zoe avoid Sam as much as possible. This made our trip underwhelming, as we spent a lot of time apart and didn't get to see our friends as much as we wanted. But it worked. Zoe and Sam were in the same room 4 times, including our arrival and departure from Greg's house. Despite that, she insists that we ruined her trip by bringing him, and that it was selfish of us not to consider her feelings about children after Tim dropped out. Zoe has yet to speak to us since we flew back home. This week she unfollowed Angie on Instagram 10 minutes after she made a post for Sam's 2nd birthday, so I think she's still bitter. Angie has been feeling guilty about this. I reassured her we had no other option, and it was unreasonable of Zoe to ask us to change our plans at the last minute. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider we might be in the wrong. Am I the idiot? You know what? Sometimes you just can't change plans at the last minute, like pulling a trusted babysitter out of your butt when you were led to believe 2 days before that you wouldn't even need one at all. Sucks for Zoe that she doesn't like kids. I don't like kids either, but you can't just stick your kid in a room at home with a litter box and an automatic feeding system. You had to bring your kid with you, as was the plan all along. Sucks for Zoe. Not the idiot op. What did she expect you to predict with your magic ball, that you should have your mother-in-law on backup duty, just in case Tim's plans fell through? It's so bogus. And as you said, this was all decided months ago. Zoe is strangely entitled to think she should be able to call the shots in a group like that. If she decided having a kid around wasn't her cup of tea, she should have skipped the trip. She has some really negative and callous feelings towards you, and maybe you're better off moving on from her as a friend. It's funny Zoe doesn't like kids because it sounds like she's the biggest baby around. My take on this is that Zoe might have been accommodating for Tim and his daughter because Zoe might have a little thing for Tim. And since Tim dropped out, why would she want to put up with your kid cluttering up the beach house? My pregnant wife, 26, and I, 35 male, are struggling at the moment as I lost my job 2 years ago, and my wife had to quit her job as she's suffering from hyperemesis gravidarum. We've used up our savings and live off our credit cards, but I've got a job lined up starting next month. My wife is very close to her sister, 31, and a few days ago, she confided in her that we're struggling. My sister has never liked me, but has always been polite to me. Despite my attempts to foster a warmer relationship, she's always kept me at arm's length. A few days ago, my sister came to visit while I was away, and she was appalled at the state of the house and the lack of baby supplies, as the baby room was bare bones, and we hadn't bought many baby things. When I arrived home, she lectured me on taking better care of her sister and scolded me for not getting ready for the baby. The next day she returned, and she brought things for the house and the baby. My wife also told her that we had to sell my wife's car to pay some bills and rent. Again, my sister-in-law had to show off, and she bought her a car to top it all off. On Sunday, she sent her $5,000 and then texted her this: "This is your money and your baby's. Do not use it on that man. If you need more, tell me and I'll send more. And remember, wherever I am, there's a home for you." I feel like her sister is trying to make me look like a failure, and I expressed that to my wife. My wife and I argued, and in a fit of anger my wife said that I only feel like a failure because I've been failing. She's apologized since, but I still stand by telling her to return everything, as I feel like accepting her sister's so-called generosity is a way to manipulate my wife into thinking I'm a bad husband. You are the idiot. What sort of a husband are you if you want your wife to be without a safety net for her and your child just because it bruises your ego that you cannot support them well enough? Time to put your ego aside and accept help because you need it. The sister is helping her family, not trying to make you look bad. You don't need anyone else to do that for you. You're doing a great job making yourself look bad without her help. Op's been unemployed for 2 years. His bride didn't mind living off of his wife, who had to leave her job a few months ago due to pregnancy complications. It's taken that long for him to line up a job for himself finally. Opie also latched onto his breadwinner wife when she was only 21, and he was a whole 30 years. It's no wonder his sister-in-law doesn't like him, and why she told his wife the money isn't for him. I, female 18, am expecting a baby. I know I'm young, I live with my boyfriend, my baby's father, and we're determined to make a good life for us and our child. Becoming a mom is making me think about what I want for my child, and one thing I want more than anything is to keep my child away from the hate my half-brother has towards my parents, and toward me as well. My parents met after my dad lost his first wife. My half-brother was 6 or 7 when his mom died and 10 when my parents met. They got married 2 years later, and I was born within a few months, so we have a 12-year age gap. My brother followed me 2 years after me and my sister 18 months after my brother. My dad's son hated that dad remarried after his mom died. His maternal family was also angry at dad for betraying their daughter and not living forever as her widower and never finding love again. Growing up around that wasn't easy. I would hear dad's son get mad at dad for loving my mom more than his son's perception. He would yell all over the house that dad was unfaithful, would say my mom was nothing special, and would never be truly loved or part of his family. He called her a side piece and another woman. Dad would argue back as well, which made things difficult. They were in therapy at times, but it never seemed to help. Even when he turned 18, he would come home and fight dad over who he loved more. He never cared for me or my siblings either. He wished dad had never had us. When my dad's son had kids, he told the whole family that my mom would never be a grandparent or family. He said the woman dad loved more than his mom and his kids' real grandma would never be loved more by his kids. He would make sure they never loved her. He talked about how he was going to pin a photo of her to a punching bag, and they would also use a photo of her as target practice because that's all she was good for. He was never cut from our lives. In fact, my dad would still let him into the home and invite him to every party or event. I will not allow any contact between the dad's son and my child, though. I don't want my child around that kind of fighting, or to hear that kind of thing about grandma and grandpa. There has been talk of a co-ed baby shower, and I told my dad his son wouldn't be invited. Dad was asking why, and I told him it should be obvious, but I don't want his son around my child when he treats us all so badly. I told him he would never be around my baby and wouldn't ever be invited to things related to my child. He told me I was extreme and should give it idiot. Not the idiot. Dude, how much more time does he want? It's been 18 plus years. Is your dad that spineless to allow his son from his first wife to treat you like that? Dad is 95% of the problem here, not shutting this idiot down. Dad is delusional if he thinks it will change. Frankly, if I were you, I'd consider never being where he is again and going no contact with the half-brother. Seriously, your dad is in straight denial that his son's resentment will get better. Your dad's son is delusional and needs serious help. Whatever therapy he was doing obviously didn't cut it. I can't find a single reason for you to expose your child to that behavior. It won't stop with your mom or grandparents. Once your child is here, your brother will rage that your dad loves your child more than his. Protect your child. Thanks for listening.